Welcome to Shahnameh, Book of Kings. Today we continue again with the Legend of Seyavash. In this case, we continue with Zanga's mission to Afrasyab. Taking 100 warriors as escort, Zanga reached the Turkish king's capital. As he approached, Afrasyab rose from his throne, embraced him, and made much of him. When the two were seated, Zanga handed over a letter and repeated all he had been told. Afrasyab's heart was wrung by what he read and heard, and his head whirled with confused notions. He had Zanga billeted according to his rank, and then summoned Piran. Clearing the court, he shared with him Kavash's childish talk, which showed his evil character and his plans for war. As Afrasyab spoke, his face, clouded with anxiety, worry, and sympathy for Seyavash, filled his heart. "What," he asked, "is the remedy for all this? What would it be best for us to do?" Piran replied, "May you live forever, my lord. In all matters you are wiser than I, and more able to carry out what must be done. But this is my opinion. Whoever has the opportunity to help this prince, either secretly or openly, either by giving him wealth or taking pains on his behalf, should do so. I've heard that in stature, sense, dignity, chivalry, and all that's fitting for a prince, there is no nobleman in all the world who is his equal. But seeing is better than hearing, and we have seen how nobly he acted over the 100 hostages he held. Opposing his father on their behalf, he cast aside his hopes of the throne and the crown, and is turning to you for help. It would not be wise or right, my lord, to let him simply pass through our territories. Our nobles would blame you for this, and you would be saddened. The prince, and then consider, Kavash is old. He cannot reign for much longer. Seyavash is young. He possesses the royal far, and he will soon inherit the throne. If my lord acts wisely in this matter, he will write to Seyavash, welcome him as a father would. Give him a place in his country, offer him respect and kindness, marry one of your daughters to him, treat him with honor and dignity. If he stays here with you, it will bring peace to your land, and if he returns to his father, fate will look kindly on you. Iran's king will be grateful to you, and the world's noblemen will praise you. If fate brings Seyavash here, our two countries will rest from warfare, as the world's creator would wish." When Turan's commander had heard Piran out and looked at the facts, he brooded for a while, weighing what should be done. Then he said, "Your advice pleases me. No one in the world has your experience and wisdom, but there's a proverb that seems opposite here. Bring up a little lion cub, and you will be rewarded when his teeth show through. Forgetting all the kindness he's been shown, he'll maul his master when his claws have grown." But Piran said, "May the king look at this matter wisely. Will a man display his father's bad qualities when he has opposed those very qualities? Don't you see that Kavash's days are numbered, and that this being so, he must die soon? Then with no trouble at all that Seyavash will inherit his country, and its treasures and glory, and our country and his, and their crowns and thrones will then be yours. And this is not the height of good fortune?" Hearing this, Afrasyab took a wise decision and called an experienced scribe. He began his letter with praise of the world's creator and continued, "May this God bless the prince, lord of the mace and sword and helmet, who is righteous, and who fears God, and whose soul there is no injustice or crookedness. I have received Zanga's message, and my heart is grieved at your king's treatment of you. But what else does a fortunate man seek for in the world than a crown and a throne? And these you have all of Turan will do your bidding, and I feel the need of your kindness. You'll be my son, and I'll be like a father to you, a father who seeks to serve his son. Kavash has never shown you the kindness I will. I'll open to you my treasury, assign you a throne, and keep you as my own child, so that you will remember me in the world when I am gone. If I let you pass through my kingdom, commoners and nobles alike will condemn me, and you will find the going hard beyond my borders unless you have supernatural powers. You'll see no land there, and will have to cross the Sea of China. But God has made this unnecessary for you. Stay here and live at my ease. My armies, territories, and wealth are at your disposal, and you won't have to search for excuses to leave when you and your father are reconciled. I'll load you with presents and willingly send you on your way to Iran. You won't be at odds with your father for long. He is old and will soon grow tired of his differences with you. Once a man reaches 65, the fire of anger begins to fail in him. Iran and all its wealth would be yours. I have accepted God's commands that I succor you, and no harm will come to you from me. Afrasyab sealed the letter, and having given Zanga gifts of gold and silver, a splendid colt, and a horse with gold-worked saddle, he sent him on his way to Seyavash. Zanga reported to his prince what he had seen and heard, and Seyavash rejoiced at this. But at the same time, his heart was filled with sorrow and anxiety that he had made a friend of his enemy. Since when did cooling breezes ever blow from a raging fire? He wrote to his father, saying, "Despite my youth, I have always acted wisely." He wrote to his father and said his harem was the cause of his first sorrow, making me traverse a mountain of fire, and in my trial the wild deer wept for me. To escape such shame, I set out for war, riding confidently against its monstrous claws. 2 countries rejoiced at the peace I fashioned, but the king's heart hardened against me like steel. Nothing I did pleased him, and since he is sick of the sight of me, I shall not stay in his presence. May happiness always inhabit his heart, while sorrow drives me to the dragon's maw. I do not know what will become of this, or what secrets of good and ill the heavens hold in store for me. Next, he gave orders to Bahram, "Keep your fame bright in the world. I hand over to you my crown and royal pavilion, the wealth I've levied, the throne, our banners, cavalry, elephants, and war drums. When the commander Tuss arrives, hand them over to him just as you've received them." He selected 300 horsemen for his own use, together with a quantity of coin, jewels, and armor. Then he summoned his officers and addressed them. "Piran, sent by Afrasyab, has already crossed to our side of the Oxus. He bears a secret message for me, and I shall go out to welcome him. You must remain here. You are to regard Bahram as your leader and to obey his orders." The warriors kissed the ground before Seyavash. As the sun set, and the air grew dark and the world forbidding, Seyavash led his men toward the Oxus, his face obscured by tears. At Termaz, the streets and roofs were decorated to welcome him, so that spring with all its tints and scents seemed to have come, and each of the towns they passed through seemed like a bride arrayed in splendor. At Kajosh, he dismounted and rested for a while. When news of his approach arrived, Piran chose 1,000 knights and rode out to welcome him, taking as a gift 4 richly caparisoned white elephants and 100 horses with gold-worked saddles. As soon as Seyavash saw the banners and heard the elephants trumpeting, he hurried toward them. The 2 embraced. Seyavash said, "Why have you troubled yourself by traveling like this? My only hope has been to see you alive and well." Piran kissed his head and feet and his handsome face and gave thanks to God, saying, "O Lord of what is hidden and what is plain, if I had seen such a man in a dream, it would have restored my youth to me." To Seyavash he said, "I praise God that I see you before me as clearly as the daylight. Afrasyab will be like a father to you, and all on our side of the Oxus are as your slaves. I have over 1,000 henchmen who are yours to command, and if you can accept an old man's service, I stand ready to obey you." The 2 rode forward then, their cheerful chat, wandering at random over this and that. The towns they passed were filled with music, sound, and scattered musk and gold obscured the ground. But seeing this, the prince's eyes grew dim. Old, melancholy memories troubled him. His heart recalled great Rostam's land, Zabul, the grandeur and the beauty of Kabul. Then all Iran beset him place by place. He blushed for shame and turned away his face. But wise Piran saw all his misery and bit his lip in pain and sympathy. They rested a while, and gazing in wonder at him, Piran said, "You seem like one of the ancient kings. You have 3 qualities which together make you unique. First, You are of the seed of Kekobad. Another, that you speak so honestly and eloquently, and third, that your countenance radiates grace. Seyavash replied, You are renowned throughout the world for your good faith and kindness, for your hatred of evil and Ahriman. Swear to me now, and I know you will not break your word. If my presence here is good, I should not weep. But if it is not good, then tell me, show me another way to another country. Piran said, Don't dwell on the fact that you've left Iran. Trust to Afrasyab's kindness, and be in no hurry to leave us. His reputation is bad in the world, but this is undeserved. He's a God-fearing man. He's wise and cautious in his counsels, and is not given to making hasty, harmful decisions. I'm related to him, and I'm both his champion and his adviser. In this land, over 100,000 horsemen are mine to command. 12,000 are from my own tribe, and if I wish, will wait on me day and night. I've weapons, territory, flocks of sheep, and much more in reserve. I can live independently of everyone. All that I have, I place at your disposal, if you will agree to live here. I have accepted you as a trust from God, and I shall let no harm come to you, though no one knows what fate holds in store for him. Seyavash was comforted by these words. His spirits revived, and they sat to their wine. Piran as a father, Seyavash as his son. Cheerful and laughing, they pressed on to Gang, a beautiful sight where the Turkish monarch held court. Afrasyab came rushing out on foot to greet them, and as soon as he saw the king approaching, Seyavash dismounted and ran forward. They embraced, kissing each other's eyes and head, and Afrasyab said, The world's evil sleeps from now on, and neither revolt nor war will break out. The leopard and the lion will share one watering place. Brave Tor set the world in a turmoil, but now our countries are tired of war. They have fought for too long, blind to the ways of peace. Through you we shall rest from battles and the longing for blood revenge. The land of Turan is your slave. The hearts of all here are full of love for you. All I have, my body and my soul, are yours. May you live healthily and happily here. All our treasures are yours. I will treat you with a father's love and always smile upon you. Seyavash replied, May your lineage never forfeit its good fortune. Then Afrasyab took Seyavash's hand and led him to the throne and sat down. He gazed at Seyavash's face and said, I know of nothing like this in all the world. In the world men are not like this, with such a face, such stature, such royal far. And turning to Piran, he said, Kavas is old, and sadly wanting in wisdom, if he can give up such a noble and accomplished son. Afrasyab had one of his palaces set aside for his guest. It was spread with gold-work carpets, and a golden throne with legs fashioned like the heads of buffalo was placed there. The walls were hung with Chinese brocade, and a multitude of servants were assigned to it. Seyavash entered, and its arch seemed to touch the heavens. It sat on the throne lost in thought, until a servant called him to dine with the king. The meal passed in pleasantries, and then the courtiers sat to their wine while musicians played in the background. Afrasyab pledged his heart to Seyavash, and swore he'd know no rest without him. They drank till darkness fell, and by the time everyone was tipsy, Seyavash had forgotten about Iran, and in his drunken state he returned to his own quarters. Afrasyab said to his son, Siddha, Take some of our nobles at dawn to Seyavash as he's waking up, and have them present him with gifts, and slaves, and fine horses, gold-worked boots, and have the army take him cash and jewels. Do this in a dignified, becoming way. The king himself sent many more gifts, and so a week passed by. One evening, the king said to Seyavash, Let's get up at dawn tomorrow and enjoy ourselves at polo. I've heard that when you play, your mallet's invincible. Seyavash agreed, and the next morning they made their way laughing and joking to the field, where the king suggested they divide up their companions. Now, with Seyavash heading one team and he the other, but Seyavash said, I can't be your rival. Choose some other opponent and let me ride on your side, if you think I'm good enough. Afrasyab was pleased by this and thought everyone else's remarks more chaff in the wind by comparison. Nevertheless, he insisted, "By the head and soul of Kavas, you're to play against me." And he insisted. He said, "See that you do well, so that no one says I've made a bad choice for an opponent." Seyavash replied, "I and all the warriors here, and the game itself, are yours to command." For himself, the king selected Golbad, Garsavaz, Jahan, Pulad, Piran, Nastahan, and Human, who was known for being able to scoop the ball from the water. To Seyavash's side, he sent some of his own henchmen, including Bruin, and the famous Shida, Ardaman, who was a great horseman, and Akhast, who was like a lion in battle. But Seyavash said, "Which of these men is going to try for the ball? They all belong to the king, and I'll be the only one playing on my side. If you'll allow me, I'll choose some of my men." The king agreed, and Seyavash selected 7 Iranians who were worthy of the honor. At the field's edge, drum thundered out, cymbals clashed, and trumpets blared. The ground seemed to shake with the din, and dust rose into the sky as horsemen took the field. The king struck the ball up toward the clouds. Seyavash urged his horse forward, and before it touched the ground, he smote the ball so hard that it disappeared from sight. Afrasyab ordered another ball to be tapped toward Seyavash. The prince lifted it to his lips, and the sounds of trumpets and drums rang out. Then he mounted a fresh horse, tossed the ball into the air, and hit it with such a blow with his mallet that it seemed to rise to the moon's sphere, as if the sky had swallowed it. The king laughed out loud, and his nobles were startled enough to exclaim, "We've never seen a horseman with such skills." Afrasyab said, "This is how a man who has God's far is." A royal pavilion had been erected at the field's edge, and there Seyavash sat with the king, who gazed happily at his princely guest. Then he called to the warriors, "The field, mallets, and balls are yours." The 2 sides fell to, and the dust rose up, obscuring the sun. The Turks strove hard to get possession, but without success. Seyavash was alarmed by the Persians' behavior and called out to them in Pahlavi, "This is a playing field, not a battlefield for you to be raging and struggling like this. Give way. Let them have the ball for once." The Persians let their rein go slack and stopped encouraging their horses. The Turks struck the ball and rushed forward like fire. When Afrasyab heard the Turks' shout of triumph, he realized what that sentence in Pahlavi had meant. He said to Seyavash, "I've been told that you have no equal as a bowman." Seyavash drew his cayenne bow from its casing, and Afrasyab asked to look at it and have one of his men test it. He praised it highly and handed it to Garsavaz, ordering him to string it. Garsavaz struggled to notch the string, but to his chagrin was unable to. Seyavash took the bow from him, knelt, bent back the shaft, and strung it. The king laughed and said, "Now that's the kind of bow a man needs. When I was young, I had just one like that, but times have changed. There's not another man in Iran or Turan who could manage this bow in battle. But Seyavash, with his great chest and shoulders, wouldn't have another one." A target was set up at the end of the list. Without saying a word to anyone, Seyavash mounted his horse, yelled his war cry, and galloped forward. One arrow struck the center of the target, and as the warriors watched, he notched another, made of popular wood, with 4 feathers, to the string, and in the same charge again transfixed the target. Gripping the reins in his right hand, he wheeled around and once again sent an arrow home. Then he slipped the bow over his arm, rode back to the king, and dismounted before him. The king stood and called down blessings on him, and the 2 made their way happily back to the palace. They sat to food and wine, accompanied by courtiers worthy of the honor, and after a few draughts had been downed and the company was growing merry, they toasted Seyavash. While they were still feasting, Afrasyab conferred a splendid robe on Seyavash, a horse with all its trappings, a sword and diadem, clothes and a quantity of uncut cloth, the like of which had no one ever seen. Silks, purses stuffed with coins, turquoises, male and female slaves, and a goblet filled with rubies. The order that all of this be counted out and then conveyed to Seyavash's palace. He commanded his kinsmen to think of themselves as a flock of which Seyavash was the shepherd. Then he turned to the prince and said, We must go hunting together. We'll enjoy ourselves, and the hunt will put sad thoughts out of our mind." Seyavash said, "Whenever and wherever you wish." And so one day, accompanied by a group of Turkish and Persian warriors, they started out with the cheetahs and hawks for the hunt. Seyavash spied a wild ass on the plain and left the group behind as he set off like the wind in pursuit. His reins grew light, his stirrups heavy, and as he galloped forward over the rough terrain, he caught up with the ass and slashed it in two with his sword. The two halves were absolutely equal in weight, as if his hands were a balance and the ass weighed silver. And when the king's companions saw this, they exclaimed, "Here is a swordsman worthy of the name." But to one another they murmured, "An evil has come to us from Iran. Our leader is put to shame by him. We should oppose this king and him." Seyavash rode on through gullies, over mountains, and across the plain, and bringing down prey with arrows, swords, and lance, piling up carcasses everywhere, until the group was sated with hunting, and made its way cheerfully back to the king's palace. Whether in good spirits or gloomy, the king wished to be with no one but Seyavash. He took pleasure in his company alone, no longer admitting Garsivaz and Jahan into his confidence. Day and night he spent with Seyavash, and it was Seyavash who was always able to bring a smile to his lip. In this way, with all its mingled joy and grief, a year went by. And now it's time for me to end my tale for today, but I'll be back tomorrow with more tales, many more tales. Until then, my friends,